The film begins in the year 1850. A writer of considerable fame arrives in town, having traveled specifically to meet someone. He knocks on the door of a house. The lady who answers asks him to leave, mistaking him for a customer. However, the writer clarifies, "I am a writer, not a client." As she opens the door wider, the woman recognizes him instantly, calling him by name. This writer had previously met her husband at this very residence. The woman's husband was named Thomas, a man advanced in years. The author had sought out Thomas to inquire about a particular story. However, Thomas greets the writer with disdain, exclaiming, "Are you mad? Have you traveled all this way to see me?" The author, undeterred by Thomas's anger, simply states that he has come to hear a story. He then offers Thomas money, saying, "I will give you all of my money if you tell me that true story." The writer even presents his entire payment to Thomas, but Thomas flatly refuses the offer. He tells the writer, "Go, check the government history. You will find that story there." Yet the writer persists. "I need to hear that real story from you. I don't need to check any government history." Hearing this, Thomas becomes enraged and demands that the writer leave immediately, declaring, "I know nothing." Worried, the writer starts to depart, but Thomas's wife intervenes, preventing him from leaving. Stepping in to apologize for her husband's behavior, she asks the writer to pay no mind to Thomas's rudeness. She explains that Thomas has never revealed that story to anyone, not even her. Going to her husband, Thomas's wife pleads with him to share his story about the incident they had faced. Finally, at his wife's urging, Thomas agrees to tell the tale. Another factor in his decision is their poverty. They desperately needed money. Thomas calls the writer closer and says, "I will tell you the story to the extent that you can bear it, because it was not a fictional tale, but a tragedy." Thomas begins, "It was an incident in my life that changed me forever." Thomas starts his story. In 1820, it was the time when whales were hunted extensively in the sea. Whale oil was a rare and valuable commodity, and most people engaged in its trade. Whaling wasn't just a profession. People were passionate about it and the extraction of its oil. They even used to gamble on which ship among the sailing fleet would return with the most oil. The scene shifts, and a man named Owen is introduced. Owen worked for a whaling company and had a wife. In the company he served was clearly dedicated to the whale oil trade. Owen meets with the owner of the company. They inform Owen that they are sending a very expensive ship out to sea for whaling and that they are hiring him as the ship's head. Hearing this, Owen is taken aback. He had been promised the captaincy for the next voyage, but the company had gone back on their word and were hiring someone else as captain, a man named George. George, it turned out, was the son of the company's owner. The company representative once again assures Owen that he will be made captain on the next trip. Recognizing Owen's skills, they offer him a raise in wages. Owen agrees, but with a condition. Sign a contract stating that you will hire me as captain next time. The scene then shows Owen preparing for the voyage. His wife is deeply troubled by his departure. She pleads with him, "Promise me that you will return soon, alive." She also makes him wear a locket, so he might remember his promise. Subsequently, the young man George, the newly appointed captain, is shown with his father. His father tells him, "My son, go and return victorious." All the whalers gather at a place where a crowd of townspeople has assembled to see them off. A young boy named Thomas is also present. Yes, this is the same young storyteller who is now an old man. This is Thomas's first time sailing on a whaling expedition. Owen's childhood friend is on the ship, along with other friends. After this, Captain George and Owen meet. A conflict begins to brew between them. George, as captain, is overbearing towards Owen, but Owen, being a subordinate, can't take any action against George's authority. They set sail, and at some distance, the ship encounters a problem. It appears to be stuck. However, Owen, using his expertise, manages to resolve the dangerous situation. It's evident that Owen's experience was crucial, while Captain George seemed completely out of his depth, lacking the necessary skills and competence. Witnessing Owen's abilities, George feels a pang of envy. He seeks to take revenge on Owen that night at the dining table, humiliating him by saying, "You are just a layman, the son of a farmer." Owen is deeply hurt by this humiliation but remains restrained. He leaves and tells his companions, "We will have to get up early in the morning." It's noticeable on the ship that common laborers were often looked down upon. The next day, George again gives Owen a command. Owen reluctantly has to obey George's orders. Then, Owen spots a storm approaching at sea. He informs George, warning him that the storm ahead poses a significant threat and that they should turn the ship back. Disagreeing with Owen, George orders the ship to sail directly into the storm. They become trapped in the raging tempest. Owen shouts amidst the storm, insisting that the ship must be retreated as soon as possible. But George continues to act recklessly, steering the ship further into danger, risking their lives and the ship itself. Somehow, they manage to emerge from the storm. Afterwards, George orders Owen to apologize to him in front of everyone. He then declares that they will sail their ship back towards their island, meaning they will return without having caught any whales. But Owen desperately tries to reason with George, saying, "Look, try to understand the situation. We cannot return empty-handed. The lives of many people depend on us bringing back oil. They are waiting for us." Ultimately, Owen manages to convince George. So instead of turning back, they continue sailing forward. The story jumps forward 3 months. They have sailed to a part of the sea where whales are abundant. They set out in their boats to hunt. Owen attacks a whale. Initially, the whale struggles to escape, but eventually it is subdued. They haul the whale onto the ship and begin the process of extracting its oil. Because of his small size, Thomas is sent inside the whale. Many days of hunting pass. However, they are no longer finding many whales, and a major problem arises. They begin to run short of food. They stop at an island in the sea, ceasing their onward journey. There, they encounter another captain who has also come to the island for whaling. They all meet, and the man shares a harrowing tale of his last hunt. He recounts how they had reached the heart of the sea and encountered the largest whale he had ever seen, a massive creature known as the Great Whale. This great whale attacked their ship, leaving it destroyed. The captain suffered a fractured hand and arm, and all his companions perished. But Owen and his crew don't take his story seriously, believing he is exaggerating. The captain leaves. However, a sense of greed now takes hold of them, a desire to sail to that specific part of the sea where the great whale was said to be. They set sail, heading towards that location. The narrative then shifts to a time exactly 14 months later. After a long and arduous voyage, they finally reach the area of the sea described by the captain. And indeed, the great whale is there. They all set out in their boats, armed with their weapons. As they are sailing, Owen's boat is suddenly attacked, and they are thrown into the water. For the first time, they behold the great whale. It matches the description given by the other captain perfectly. The great whale begins to swim away, but Owen's companions are still in their boat. Seizing an opportunity, they attack one of the smaller whales and manage to kill it. However, the great whale notices their actions. It turns and directly attacks their ship. As a result, the ship begins to sink. George, who was in his own boat, observes this. Leaving the dead whale behind, he starts rowing towards his ship. George orders everyone to abandon the ship immediately as it is going down. They all get into the boats, salvaging any edible supplies they can find. The following morning, they are seen studying a sea map. But their situation has become incredibly difficult. They have been caught in another sea storm. In this storm, Owen's childhood friend is severely injured. Time passes, and Owen tends to his wounded friend. However, the rest of their companions view him as nothing but a burden. Another month passes. Their food supplies have completely run out. They are on the brink of death, facing the direst of circumstances. Then, one of their companions spots land. Filled with relief, they begin to sail towards it. As they approach the shore, Owen senses something. It is not just the land, but the great whale. It strikes their boats, causing significant damage. They eventually reach the shore, battered by the ocean waves. Their condition is no better than animals. They eat whatever they can find to survive on the barren island. George instructs his companions to start a fire, hoping that any passing ship will see the smoke and rescue them. They are stranded on an uninhabited island. One day, while searching for food, they discover a cave. Inside, they find numerous human skeletons, a grim indication that others had been trapped there before and had perished without help. Fear grips them as they realize they might suffer the same fate. They decide to try and repair their damaged boats to leave the island. Some of the men, including Owen's childhood friend, plan to stay behind. As he departs, Owen promises his friend that he will return with help. 48 days pass. The condition of those who remained on the island has deteriorated drastically. They are barely alive, starving. Then one of their companions dies. As Owen's friend is about to throw the body into the sea, they make a horrifying decision. Rather than discard the body, they decide to eat it. It is a deeply disturbing thought, but they see no other way to survive. The decision weighs heavily on them, but they are desperate and helpless in their situation. So they consume the flesh of their friend. The narrative returns to the present time. The aged Thomas is visibly distressed as he recounts the horrific act of cannibalism. Just then, Owen's wife arrives, weeping. She is overcome with grief after hearing the heart-wrenching story of her husband's ordeal. She urges Thomas to reveal the rest of the story. The scene shifts to 1 month after that dreadful event. The survivors are adrift at sea, still trapped. Their condition is worsened by extreme starvation. In a desperate attempt to survive, they resort to a gruesome game. The loser would be killed and his flesh eaten by the others. One day, Captain George loses the game. Handing a gun to his cousin, George commands him to shoot him to end his life. But instead, George's cousin turns the gun on himself and takes his own life. The remaining men then consume his body. One day, they once again catch sight of the great whale. Owen raises his weapon to attack, but as he looks into the whale's eye, he hesitates. He lowers his weapon and the great whale swims away. Many days later, a ship is spotted. The people on board notice George's boat. They come to their aid. When the ship's captain observes the human remains in the boat, he is utterly shocked. Owen and Thomas's boat had become separated from the other boat. Owen and Thomas are in critical condition, near death. Then, Owen spots another ship in the distance. They signal for help. The ship comes to their rescue, pulling them from their perilous situation. Finally, after many days, they are brought back home, the few survivors. The townspeople are astonished to see them, as they had long presumed them dead. Owen's wife is there, waiting for him. They embrace in a tearful reunion. On the same day, Owen and Thomas meet again. Owen gives Thomas his whale pin as a memento of their shared experience. Later, the company management summons Owen and George to hear their account of what happened at sea. Owen, sensing that their true story will likely be disbelieved, begins to leave. As he goes, Owen tells George, "Perform your duty as a captain. Reveal the truth to them." Initially, George tells a fabricated version of events, but he eventually confesses the truth. However, the company members choose to believe the embellished story. The scene then focuses on Owen. Having survived the unimaginable, he is starting a new life. True to his promise, he sends a boat back to the island for his friend. But it is too late. Owen's friend has already died. Here, Thomas's story concludes. After finishing his narration, Thomas asks the writer, "Will you reveal this to the world?" The writer replies, "Yes, but I will give a new turn to this story, one that will be based on the true events." The film then fast-forwards many months. The writer is shown to have written a book about their ordeal, which has brought him great fame. The movie ends on this scene.